Hello everyone, welcome to another Modest Musings. My name is Fear Dragon, and today's topic is going to be a little bit more impromptu. I've thought about this a lot lately, but I haven't really formed the thoughts as coherently as I oftentimes try to do. So forgive me if I do start rambling. I'm going to try and keep it a little bit more direct. I've definitely been thinking a lot about this lately, but today's topic is dealing with loss. And I don't mean like loss in terms of, lost a family member or a close friend or something. But dealing with personal loss in an activity or something that you're pursuing, whether it be StarCraft, whether it be you are an actor or like a musician and you audition for something and you didn't get the part, whether it be being a commentator and not getting the gig that you were like hoping to get or anything like that. I think, and the big topic that the big focus, I think a lot of it is going to be on StarCraft, just because I think that's the most relatable thing for most of the people who watch these. And I guess just like dealing with the loss when you have a really bad ladder streak or you're in a tournament, really high pressure situation that really mattered to you and you weren't able to pull through. Dealing with loss is really difficult. And I've seen a lot of people deal with loss and that frustration really differently. So there's some people who, and I'm going to go over like some of the more negative examples first. Like some people will turn it very outwardly. They'll find reasons why they think it wasn't their fault. They find justifications for why they feel like the loss was not really because of them. Most obvious example in like say StarCraft, we'll talk about like mostly just playing StarCraft. You see the people who blame balance. They'll blame David Kim. They'll blame Blizzard. They'll blame all kinds of other things. They'll blame their opponent sometimes for saying like, why would they do something that's stupid? Though that's one way to like handle loss, and I don't think it's a productive way because, and I'm gonna try and go over some of these scenarios that I've seen a lot of, and even some that I've gone through, and point out why I think they're not as productive. That one's pretty obvious. Like you're not really looking for a solution anymore. You feel like it's out of your control. You're conditioning yourself to think like, I lost because of something outside of my control, and therefore there's no need for me to change. That oftentimes will lead to more loss, a little more frustration in the future. So it's not a productive path. Some people will turn it into something saying like, I'm not good enough anymore. And while I don't think that's always a terrible thing, because acknowledging that a loss happened for a reason and that it was because you were lacking something. Oftentimes, I think that is the best way to think of things is if you miss out on something, oftentimes it was because you were lacking something. Now it's a question of whether or not that something that you lack is something you do desire. Sometimes, let's say the best example as I can think of is, let's say there's a job positioning, and this job is something that you maybe wanted, but you find out that you weren't a good fit for it. That's not always going to be because, let's say this job positioning is because you're like, or let's say it's actually an audition. That might be an easier example. And you are an amazing country artist or something. You have a beautiful voice for country music. And it turns out the part that you were auditioning for in this, like, whatever musical or something, they were looking for someone more of a rock artist. The thing that you lack is potentially the perception or the skills as a rock artist or a rock singer. And that is something that you lack potentially, or at least you lack the perception of it, but you don't necessarily always want to pursue that. Maybe you don't want to be a rock singer or a rock artist. You want to be a country singer, in which case the thing that you're pursuing, you need to reevaluate whether or not you really want it and whether you or not you're willing to commit the things that you need to do to get that thing. If you are frustrated with your losses in StarCraft, you can question yourself, are you really driven to improve? Do you really, really want to invest the time it takes to improve at StarCraft? Are you willing to do that kind of focus, to do that dedicated improvement to, say, get Grandmaster, if that's something you're shooting for? Or if you are a player that's trying to play in WCS, are you willing to invest the effort and the time to hit, the top end of Challenger and qualify for these events and make round of 16, round of 8, round of 4 grand final finishes? And it's okay for the answer to be no. If you decide, you know what, I'm not shooting for the absolute top. That's actually a decision that I think is okay to make, as long as you are comfortable with the fact that you won't be reaching that and that you have other values of why you pursue that, not necessarily being number one in the world or wherever the craft may be. But when you don't get a position and you find that it is something you really do want and you don't manage to get it, you get turned down for whatever reason, you don't win, someone beats you, I think the key is still looking inward. You still need to look into like a self-reflection of it and think about, why did I lose? What was the reason? Kind of same as what I was talking about before. Once you identify the reason, if it is something that you are willing to change, I think it's important to channel that frustration. I don't think it's actually good to just let go of the frustration. I think the frustration, at least maybe this is a personality thing. For me personally, when I suffer that kind of loss, and it's something I really care about, I found that it is more beneficial for me to channel that frustration into succeeding. It becomes your drive, or at least my drive. When I don't have something go my way, then that's how I deal with it. I find motivation from it. And it's almost not even so much to prove other people wrong, but to show myself that I could do it, to prove to myself that, yeah, you know what? I do work hard enough, and I do put in the effort, and I do put in the time, and I'm thoughtful about how I pursue that. I can do it. And I think it's important not to do it. Actually, I don't know if I would agree with what I was about to say. I'm thinking about whether it makes sense, or I think it's healthy to try and do it to prove it to other people, because I think that is something that sometimes does drive people, showing everyone else that you were capable. And while I'm a big believer in kind of looking inward for, I guess, your own approval, I think that in some ways it'll lead to a lot more happiness. It's something that's much more under your control, similar to how you hear like Day 9 or Pig and all kinds of other really smart individuals in StarCraft games talk about how, or actually Maynard's a really great example of this. He creates focus goals when he ladders. He creates focus goals that are within his control, because if your focus, your big win condition is actually winning games, that's something that's out of your control. The game is made, the ladder system is made to even you out at around a 50% win rate. Whether you're winning a lot or losing a lot, it tries its best to even you out there. So saying you're just going to win games is kind of out of your control. Saying you're going to win other people's approval is very much out of your control. You can do things to influence it, but finding something more like internal validation, being happy with yourself and your own performance, I tend to favor that a little bit more, and I think it leads to overall long-term happiness. But there is a bit of a danger there. If you are a perfectionist or you're very hard on yourself, then can also lead to almost the opposite effect, where I know that this is actually something I think I sometimes struggle with personally, where I feel like I have expectations for myself, and it's almost frustrating sometimes for me when I feel like I don't achieve or match those same expectations. And then I hear other people trying to comfort me saying, no, I think you're doing fine, or, you did great on that or something. And it's like the opposite of what the kind of situation you normally hear about, which is a lot of people hear about, oh, like I was happy, I would have been happy with myself, but someone else said that they weren't happy with me or they didn't like me, and suddenly now I felt insecure. It's almost the opposite. Everyone else sometimes will be happy with or content or think that you did fine. But if you are a perfectionist, sometimes you will be overly hard on yourself, and you will find that you are more frustrated. But I think it'll drive you to a better place. It'll drive you to success a lot of the time. You have to be careful about walking that balance. You have to find a good point that is reasonable within reality of what you expect of yourself. But once you find that, I think dealing with loss becomes much easier. Well, no, that's not true. Dealing with loss becomes much more productive. You find more motivation from it. You find a way to use it as a driving point for improvement, and from that improvement comes success. And you know what? I think that it's always good to look internally whenever something doesn't go your way and ask yourself if, not just if you could have done something better. I think there's always room for improvement on almost anything. Anything worthwhile doing, there is room for improvement. And, well, yeah, you know what? The biggest factor may not have always been you. Sometimes you won't be the biggest reason why something didn't work out. Sometimes the world isn't fair, but I don't think it's productive. And this is actually a really core part of my philosophy in life in general. That, I don't know, it's a combination of like what other people have said, books I've read, what my parents really pushed on me and everything. But if you want to continue improving and driving towards success in life, I think it's worthwhile to always take things as, I don't think fault is the right word, but always assume that you could have done something to better the odds. Because even when, you know what, if you look back and in reality, maybe it wasn't the case, maybe it was almost unreasonable for you to try and do that, you'll still find that way to improve at least 1%. And whether or not you feel like that the effort involved to get that extra 1% probability could have turned things around is worth it to you, that's a whole other question. That's a question you have to ask yourself each time you find those flaws, those ways to change the way you play, the way you approach your job interviews, the way you approach your job, the way you approach almost anything. But you won't find those ways if you're not looking for them most of the time. I think it's much more reliable if you are always looking for ways that you can improve in every situation. So yeah, anyways, this was kind of a weird topic. I've been thinking a lot about this because recently, and I don't want to go too much into it, more personal stuff, but stuff that I was hoping would work out, or it's, I guess not even hoping would work out. Sometimes it's more just stuff that I kind of wanted to work out, but didn't work out. And I think that it's important to maintain a healthy mentality, because I've seen so many times people go to like these really negative places, either inwardly or outwardly toward other people and themselves. And I've seen what it does, and I've seen the kind of negativity it causes in their life. I feel like it causes more grief than it causes happiness a lot of the time. So yeah. Anyways, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for tuning in. After that kind of morose topic, I'll note that I will be casting Kings of the North in about a week and a half. It's going to be super exciting. I am crazy excited. I'm going to get to cast with my boy Tempo, get to cast with Zombie Grub. Steadfast is going to be there on the analysis desk alongside No Regret and Penguin. No Regret's going to be like the host. It's really going to be a lot of hype. Kings of the North is one of my favorite events to go commentate. It's North American StarCraft at its finest, like some of the best players in North America, really hype production and all kinds of awesomeness. So be on the lookout for that. If you're in Toronto, please stop by. It's a really fun event. And it's a very homely event. You get to hang out with like really cool people. I believe Neeb and Scarlet and Jon Snow and Semper and Jim Rising. I think a bunch of other people. Masa are going to be there. Again, already mentioned some of the commentators and stuff. A lot of other awesome people end up showing up, so be sure to stop by. Besides that, I'll also be at TwitchCon on Saturday and Sunday of TwitchCon. Not going to be there on Friday. And I'll also be at the entirety of BlizzCon. So if you're going for any one of those, please say hi. I promise I can't promise I'm not a total asshole, but I promise that I try not to be an asshole and I try to be a nice person. So I would love to just have conversations with lovely people. And yeah. Thank you all so much for tuning in. Hope everything in your life is going fantastic. If it's not, I believe in your power to turn things around. Have a wonderful night or day or evening or afternoon, whenever you're watching this. Keep StarCrafting.